About 3 or 4 days, as I recall, after the men first landed on the moon, I think that's back in 1969, I got in my car and drove east, and I drove to Martha's Vineyard Island, where I took up residence for what I thought was just going to be a short stay, and it ended up being 13 years. I decided to come east primarily because I grew up without seasons. I grew up in Los Angeles, and so I'm really drawn to ice and snow and those transformations that happen on the landscape. Most of what I do at Buffalo Falls and in New England in general has to do with winter. Winter for me is solitude. Winter for me is mood. It really evokes the kinds of feelings that I'm trying to make images about. I think that you try to make contact with points of connection in the landscape that reflect mood, your own mood, either at that time or moods you've had. But we're all trying to find these associations or analogies with the landscape. Pictures don't have to be necessarily picturesque, but they really have to have meaning, and they really have to reflect a point of connection for you. Once you find an image, and that's really the challenging part, trying to find something that you can really respond to with a degree of excitement, inspiration comes into play, and you're inspired basically to try and reach inside yourself and see the gesture, see the light, make a statement that really somehow brings together all that you know about the technique of the photographic process, and how what you see in front of you with your eyes really is going to be transformed by the camera into something that's speaking the language of photography. And you use your shutter speed, you use your depth of field, you use any number of things, both as you take the picture and even after you've taken the picture, as you transform light and darkness in subtle ways in the final print to make the statement that really speaks. One of the pictures that I'm most happy with technically was doing 4 separate exposures, which included 3 phases of the lunar eclipse over Aquinnah on Martha's Vineyard. And I think a lot of people, though they've seen lunar eclipses, have rarely seen it done in phases and stages. One of the advantages of using film was the ability to make multiple exposures. This particular shot of ice under the pier has over 20 separate exposures, which creates that wonderful misty effect. I was lucky to have discovered fireman's boots when I moved to Martha's Vineyard, and I used to walk into the water. Much of what I do is from that perspective. My tripod is planted right into the ocean floor. It's the only way I could possibly get the perspective that I got with Whirlpool. Some shots are just gifts. This was a snowstorm on an April 1st. It came quickly and it left just as quickly, but in the interim I was able to get this image. I stayed on Martha's Vineyard for 13 years and watched as my work grew in ways that surprised me. The idea that vision comes full-blown and that you begin a career in photography fully formed doesn't work that way. But I found that as I looked at the work that I was doing, I saw similarities in how I arranged space and what I was drawn to, certainly in terms of making connections with the landscape. It's interesting, what you do when you make a picture is you kind of give up ownership the moment you show that picture to someone else. Whatever it was that you responded to and thought you were saying in that photograph becomes really the emotional property of the viewer. You can't follow your pictures around and explain them to people. They have their own life once they go out into the public.